Summoner of Light, the Grisha Saga begins. The kingdom of Ravka lay divided, torn asunder by a swath of impenetrable darkness, known as the Shadow Fold. This nightmarish realm of monsters and eternal night stretched across the once so proud nation, like a festering wound separating the fertile coast from the rest of the country. In this land of magic and strife, where hope flickered like a candle in the wind, our story begins. Alina Starkov, a pale, unremarkable girl with a mop of mousy brown hair, stood at the edge of the military encampment, her eyes fixed on the looming darkness of the Shadow Fold. The air was thick with tension, the scent of fear mingling with the acrid smell of gunpowder and the earthy aroma of horses. Soldiers milled about, their faces grim, their hands never far from their weapons. Beside Alina stood her childhood friend, Mal Oretsev. Where Alina was thin and awkward, Mal was the picture of a soldier, tall, broad-shouldered, with bright blue eyes that seemed to pierce through the gloom. They had grown up together as orphans, their bond forged in the crucible of shared hardship and loss, as cartographers in the army. Alina and Mal were to accompany the expedition across the fold. The journey was perilous, the stuff of nightmares. Stories were told in hushed whispers of the Volcra, winged creatures that hunted in the darkness, their shrieking cries heralding a swift and terrible death. As the skiffs were prepared for the crossing, Alina felt a familiar ache in her chest. It was a sensation she had experienced her entire life. A pull, a yearning for something she couldn't name. She had always attributed it to her feelings for Mal. But now, on the brink of entering the fold, it felt different. Stronger. More urgent. The journey into the fold was a descent into hell itself. Darkness pressed in from all sides, so thick it seemed almost tangible. The only light came from the blue lanterns that flickered weakly at the bow and stern of each skiff. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the soft lapping of waves against the sides of the boats, and the occasional nervous whisper of a soldier. Then came the attack. The Volcra descended upon them in a flurry of leathery wings and razor-sharp claws. Chaos erupted as soldiers fought desperately against the nightmarish creatures. In the midst of the mayhem, Alina saw Mal knocked overboard, disappearing into the inky blackness of the fold. In that moment of utter despair, something within Alina broke free. A surge of power, unlike anything she had ever experienced, coursed through her body. Light, pure and brilliant, erupted from her hands, illuminating the fold and driving back the Volcra. As quickly as it had come, the light faded, leaving Alina dazed and exhausted. The surviving soldiers stared at her in awe and fear. She had manifested a power thought long lost to Raka. She was a sun summoner, a Grisha with the ability to call forth light itself. News of Alina's power spread like wildfire. Before she could fully comprehend what had happened, she was whisked away to Oz-Alta, the capital of Raka, to be presented to the Darkling, the enigmatic and powerful leader of the Grisha. The journey to Oz-Alta was a blur of new experiences for Alina. She watched in wonder as the landscape changed from the war-torn west to the more prosperous eastern regions. The closer they got to the capital, the more evidence she saw of the Grisha's influence. Buildings that seemed to defy gravity, fabrics of impossible colors, foods with flavors that danced on the tongue. Alta itself was a city of contrasts. The outer rings were a maze of narrow streets and crowded markets, the air thick with the scent of spices and the clamor of 1,000 voices. But as they approached the palace, the grand palace, the streets widened, the buildings grew more opulent, and the people more richly dressed. The grand palace was a marvel of architecture, its golden domes and intricate spires reaching towards the sky. Inside, it was a labyrinth of marble halls, gilded chambers, and hidden passages. Alina felt small and out of place, her simple military uniform a stark contrast to the silks and jewels of the courtiers. It was in this overwhelming setting that Alina first met the Darkling. He emerged from the shadows like a figure from a dream, tall and lithe, with ink-black hair and eyes of the palest gray. Power seemed to radiate from him, and when he spoke, his voice was like velvet over steel. "So," he said, his eyes boring into Alina, "you're the one." Under the Darkling's intense scrutiny, Alina felt her power stir within her, responding to his presence. He explained to her the significance of her abilities, how she could be the key to destroying the Shadow Fold and reuniting Ravka. In the days that followed, Alina was introduced to the world of the Grisha. She was taken to the little palace, a smaller, but no less grand building within the palace, grounds that served as the headquarters and training center for the Grisha. Here, Alina met others of her kind, Korporalki, who could manipulate the human body, Etherialki, who commanded the elements, and Materialki, who could manipulate matter itself. She was given a kefta, the distinctive coat worn by the Grisha, hers in the blue of the Etherialki, but embroidered with gold to mark her unique status. Training began immediately, and Alina found herself struggling to control her newfound powers. Under the tutelage of Bagra, a stern and enigmatic old woman, Alina worked tirelessly to summon her light at will. The process was frustrating and often painful, leaving Alina drained and discouraged. But even as she struggled with her training, Alina found herself drawn deeper into the world of the Grisha. She made friends. Genia, a tailor with the ability to alter physical appearance, became a confidant and guide in navigating the complex social dynamics of the little palace. She also made enemies, particularly among those who resented her sudden rise to prominence. Through it all, the Darkling remained a constant presence, alternately encouraging and challenging Alina. She found herself both drawn to and wary of him, unsure of the feelings he stirred within her. As Alina's control over her power grew, so did the plans to use it against the Shadow Fold. The Darkling proposed an expedition to test Alina's abilities, to see if she could truly banish the darkness that had plagued Ravka for so long. But even as preparations for this mission were underway, Alina couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. Strange occurrences, whispered conversations that stopped when she approached, furtive glances exchanged between Grisha she had thought were her friends, left her feeling isolated and paranoid. It was during this time that Alina discovered the truth about her power, and about the Darkling himself. In a hidden chamber deep beneath the little palace, she found ancient texts that spoke of Morozova's herd, magical creatures, whose antlers were said to amplify Grisha power. One of these creatures, a stag, was said to still roam the far north of Ravka. The texts also revealed the true nature of the Darkling. He was not just the current leader of the Grisha, but the Black Heretic himself, the very man who had created the Shadow Fold centuries ago. His goal was not to destroy the Fold, but to use it as a weapon to consolidate his power over Raqqa and beyond. Horrified by this revelation, Alina fled the little palace, determined to find the stag and use its power to defeat the Darkling. Her journey took her across Raqqa, from the glittering capital to the frozen wastes of the north. Along the way, she was reunited with Mal, whose tracking skills proved invaluable in the search for the stag. As they traveled together, facing hardships and dangers, Alina found her feelings for Mal rekindled and deepened. The hunt for the stag became a race against time, with the Darkling's forces close behind. When they finally found the magical creature, it was a moment of breathtaking beauty. The stag stood in a moonlit clearing, its coat shimmering like freshly fallen snow, its antlers gleaming with an inner light. But the moment of wonder was shattered by the arrival of the Darkling and his men. In the battle that followed, the stag was killed, and its antlers fashioned into a collar that the Darkling placed around Alina's neck, binding her power to his control. Captured and powerless, Alina was forced to accompany the Darkling back to the Shadow Fold. There, in a terrible demonstration of power, the Darkling used Alina's light to expand the Fold, swallowing up an entire village. It was in this moment of utter despair that Alina found the strength to break free. Drawing on her connection to Mal and her own inner resolve, she shattered the Darkling's control, reclaiming her power. The final confrontation with the Darkling took place in the heart of the Shadow Fold. Light battled shadow as Alina and the Darkling unleashed the full extent of their powers. The Volcra, drawn by the display, swarmed around them in a frenzy. In the end, it was not raw power that decided the battle, but sacrifice and love. Mal, wounded and surrounded by Volcra, called out to Alina. In that moment, she understood what she had to do. Instead of fighting the darkness, she embraced it, along with all the fear and pain it represented. This acceptance unleashed Alina's power in its purest form. Light exploded outward, driving back the darkness of the Fold, and searing the Volcra from the sky. When it faded, the Darkling was gone. Whether destroyed or merely banished, none could say. In the aftermath of the battle, Alina found that her power, too, had vanished. The stag's antlers crumbled to dust, and with them went her ability to summon light. But as she stood there, hand in hand with Mal, watching the sun rise over a Raqqa no longer divided by darkness, she felt no regret. The story of the Sun Summoner quickly passed into legend. Songs were sung of Alina Starkov, the orphan girl who had saved Raqqa. But for Alina herself, the true victory was not in grand deeds or epic battles, but in the quiet moments, walking hand in hand with Mal through sun-dappled forests, laughing with friends over a shared meal, watching children play without fear in once-shadowed lands. Yet even as Raqqa celebrated its newfound peace, new challenges arose. The loss of the Shadow Fold, while a blessing in many ways, also left the country vulnerable to its enemies. The Fjordans to the north and the Shu Han to the south watched with hungry eyes, seeing opportunity in Ravka's period of transition. Alina, though no longer possessing her supernatural powers, found herself called upon to serve her country once more. Her experiences had given her a unique perspective, and her voice carried weight in the halls of power. She worked tirelessly to help rebuild Ravka, to forge a nation where Grisha and ordinary people could live together in harmony. But the shadow of the Darkling lingered. Rumors persisted that he had survived, that he was gathering strength in secret, waiting for the right moment to strike. Alina knew better than most the threat he posed, and she remained vigilant, ready to face him again if need be. As the years passed, Alina and Mal made a life for themselves. They established an orphanage, determined to provide the love and support to others that they had found in each other. Children from all over Ravka came to them, some Grisha, some not, all in need of a home. In quiet moments, Alina would sometimes feel a whisper of her old power, like an echo of a forgotten song. In these times, she would think of all she had been through, of the friends she had made and lost, of the battles fought and won. And though she no longer commanded the light, she found that she could still be a beacon of hope for others. The story of the Sun Summoner, of shadow and bone, of light and darkness, became more than just a tale of one girl's journey. It became a reminder to all of Ravka, and to all who heard it, that, even in the darkest of times, there is always hope. That with courage, sacrifice, and love, even the deepest shadows can be banished. And so, as Alina Starkov looked out over the land she had saved, she knew that her journey was far from over. The shadow fold was gone, but there would always be darkness in the world, always be those who sought to use power for their own ends. But there would also always be light, always be those willing to stand against the darkness. In the end, that was the true legacy of the Sun Summoner, not the power to command light, but the courage to be a light for others, to illuminate the path forward, even in the darkest of times. As Alina tucked the orphans into bed each night, she would tell them stories of brave Grisha and cunning trackers, of magical stags and shadowy villains. But more than that, she taught them about the light that exists within each person, a light that no darkness can ever truly extinguish. And sometimes, in the deep of night, when the moon hung low and the stars blazed bright, Alina would stand at the window, her hand clasped in Mal's, and look out over the land they had fought so hard to save. In these moments, she could almost feel the pulse of Ravka beneath her feet, the heartbeat of a nation reborn. The journey of the Sun Summoner had ended, but the story of Ravka, of the Grisha, of the endless battle between light and shadow, continued on. And Alina Starkov, once the most powerful Grisha in the world, now found her strength in simpler things, in love, in compassion, in the quiet courage to face each new day. For she knew, better than anyone, that true power lay not in the ability to summon light or shadow, but in the choice to stand up for what is right, to protect those who cannot protect themselves, to love fiercely and without reservation. And in this, Alina Starkov remained the brightest light of all.